That was like perfect timing for turning that water on because it almost sounded like somebody had explosive diarrhea the second that the episode started.
I might have explosive diarrhea. You don't know.
All right. Let's start this thing up.
Bizarre Inquiries with Shayn and Orin.
What is up, guys, and welcome to the show where we let our minds wander as we dive into various weird things that we happen to come across, and sometimes that are user-submitted. I am the one that a few people call Shane Squatch.
What the hell is even that?
And alongside me, I have the one that they call the Big Bad Boo Daddy himself, Orin Felix.
That's right.
Chill.
Right
And
here. Live and in person.
Live and in person. The Big Bad Boo Daddy himself, as Alex Jones said last week on the last episode. So I think we're going to have to maybe hit Alex Jones back up about getting a specialized intro for at least one day for Bizarre Inquiries. Maybe we can even have him as a temporary pop-in guest here and there, you know?
Well, he's a very busy man. I don't know if he can pencil us in, but we'll have to see.
Maybe we can get lucky enough to get a quick intro out of it, but at least diving into what we got today for you guys, we definitely have some fascinating articles and stuff to dive into with you guys today. And like on the last episode, I didn't get the opportunity to find something that's a little bit more of the comic relief at the end. And this one, I was fortunate enough to do that. So something to look forward to, Orin. And I have not told you this topic on purpose because I want to get your blind reaction to it when we get to number 3.
I mean, it's going to have to be something to top the Florida Man game, so I'm eagerly anticipating.
Oh, I think it might actually top the Florida Man games, if I'm being totally honest with you. It's pretty good. It's another competition, man.
Okay.
You'll have to wait and you'll have to get to it,
All
man.
right. I'll let you know when we get there.
But before we get into the show, of course, is there anything new and exciting going on with you, my friend?
Not really. Me and Jenny actually are going to Washington, D.C. for a little weekend trip this weekend. So if any of you guys remember a previous Bizarre Inquiries episode where I told my story about getting detained by the Secret Service, hopefully that doesn't happen again. But if you guys never hear from me again, I'm probably like in the basement of the Pentagon somewhere. So
just for a fun test, just with no context to it, you should just tape one wire to the back of your car just to see if anybody will notice. Just do it really, really crude with duct tape in the back corner and just have it just taped there and just see if anything happens. Because the last time, I think your issue, if I am not mistaken, was the fact that you had all these CB radios and stuff in the back.
That is correct, yes.
They're clearly watching that type of stuff. So if you maybe just leave a slight little clue that you might have a radio, then you can totally gaslight them once they pull you over and say, bro, it's a piece of tape. I don't know how it got here, man. There's a piece of wire. Like, maybe I was fixing something. Like, I don't know, man.
Well, I'm probably still on some sort of blacklist or something. So, I mean, they probably would not ask any questions at this point, just straight to the firing squad.
Yeah, no, they just take you straight down into the basement and start interrogating you, make you listen to the Real Slim Shady over and over again until you eventually just mentally break. Or they'll just
me
play
down
Zach
to
Brown
the
Band.
Smithsonian basement where all the giant bones are.
Hey, at least the good news is at the very tail end, you'll at least know that something may be out there.
Yeah, that last 30 seconds of life will be glorious. But anywho, do you have anything exciting going on your end?
Honestly, not anything too exciting. I will be home by myself this weekend, and that's always... I don't know if that's going to be fun or not necessarily, because the lady...
I bet the first few hours will be fun.
Except for I'll have one of the little ones with me, so I can't go too
really
crazy.
Being at home by yourself then.
But speaking of that little one, for the sake of throwing in fun stories, he's got this new trend that he likes to do, where I'm sure a lot of people with toddlers, it's part of the fun of having a toddler, but he does this new thing now where we got him potty trained. He's been totally potty trained for a while now. He's been going, no issues, anything like that. And now he decides that it's about time that he starts to poop in his diaper, or not diaper, poop in his underwear, and then he decides to put his fingers in it, and then he comes up and he tells me that there's poop in his pants while he has shit on his fingers, and he's doing this outreach thing to me, like, you know, like the pick-me-up data, but with shit fingers, and it's been absolutely fantastic. So I'm really, really hoping that maybe I'll get lucky and that won't happen this weekend, but again, the joys of having a young one.
He learned that from his Uncle Orin.
I knew that you taught him something bad. I knew it.
That's what I do when I'm at home by myself, too.
You
Just
took him in the
shit my
corner.
pants and play with it.
Took him in the corner, and you're like, bud, all right, this is what you got to do. You got to wait
Shit
a
in your
couple
pants.
months.
It's the coolest.
Shit in your pants because it is the coolest. But the trick is you got to wait a couple months because it can't be tied back to me. It'll be so much funnier
Dad will
if they don't
never
know I
see it
told you.
coming.
You'll never see it coming.
Speaking of seeing things coming, Shane, let's go ahead and get rolling. What do you have for us tonight for our first article / video / inquiry?
So, as I tend to do with a lot of this stuff, I like to kind of hit you guys with a little bit more philosophical stuff first. And then, of course, like I said, I try to leave the funny stuff towards the end. But at least what I have for you guys this week is something that was somewhat of a social experiment, I guess you could say, that was done with rats. It's something that I heard about a little bit ago, but it seems like it fits pretty well in a lot of the context that's going on in the world today. I know some people say it's debunked and that it was a hoax, but on the flip side, there's a bunch of documentaries around it. But I guess before I play this article or play this clip and kind of get into it a bit more, Orin, have you heard of the Universe 25 experiment?
I do not think so.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, we'll start this one fresh then. I won't give you too much more context other than what I've given you. And same to the listeners. This video is a little bit on the longer side, but again, I want everybody to fully understand this concept. And this is coming from somebody else's YouTube explaining it. So, you know, the whole thing about fair use, we're going to be taking this apart, dividing it. So it's fair use. Don't worry about it. We're not going to get in trouble for playing somebody else's YouTube clip, but let's get into this one today. The Universe 25 experiment. And let me bring it a little bit closer for everybody.
Cannibalism, asexuality, and violence. A society that had
You can hear that, by the way, right?
I can.
Okay.
collapsed. What's going on here? In 1972, John B. Calhoun detailed the specifications of a utopia designed for mice, built in the laboratory. Every aspect of Universe 25, as this particular model was called, was designed to cater for the well-being of its rodent residents, increase their lifespan, and allow them to mate. There was abundant food, water, and nesting material. The universe was cleaned regularly. There were no predators, the temperature stable. Paradise. Or maybe not. 4 pairs of disease-free mice selected from the National Institute of Health's elite breeding colony moved in on day 1. It took months for the rodents to familiarize themselves with their new world. Then they started to reproduce, and the population increased exponentially, doubling every 55 days. Those were the good times in paradise. Past day 315, more than 600 mice now lived in Universe 25, rubbing shoulders on their way up and down the stairwells to eat, drink, and sleep. Population growth slowed. Young ones found themselves born into a world with far more mice than meaningful social roles. Males faced a lot of competitors to defend their territory against. Many found that so stressful they gave up. Normal discourse within the community broke down, and with it the ability of mice to form social bonds. Lone females retreated to isolated nesting boxes on penthouse levels. Other males, a group Calhoun termed the beautiful ones, never sought sex and never fought. They just ate, slept, and groomed, wrapped in narcissistic introspection. Elsewhere, cannibalism, asexuality, and violence became endemic.
My superpower's being
Society
honest. I
had
will eat my
collapsed.
neighbors.
On day 560, the population peaked at 2,200 mice. A few mice survived past weaning until day 600, after which there were few pregnancies and no surviving young. As the population had stopped regenerating itself, its path to extinction was clear. The mice had lost the capacity to rebuild their numbers. Many that could still conceive, such as the beautiful ones and their secluded singleton female counterparts, had lost the social ability to do so. On day 920 was the last conception. The last mouse died on May 23, 1973, 4 years and 10 months after colonization. Calhoun later said that the creatures had died 2 deaths. The first was that of their spirit and their society. The second death was that of their physical body. It was not the first time the ethologist had built a world for rodents. Calhoun had been creating utopian environments for rats and mice since the 1940s, with consistent results. Overpopulation leads to explosive violence and hypersexual activity, followed by asexuality, self-destruction, and extinction. In his widely cited paper, Population Density and Social Pathology, Calhoun concluded, no matter how sophisticated we are, once the number of individuals capable of filling social roles greatly exceeds the number of such roles, only violence and disruption can follow. He then referred to a phenomenon he called behavioral sync. Behavioral sync is our desire to be in the presence of others, to be conditioned to seek to be near others, and to be drawn to the crowd, in spite of the conflicts that this can generate. Drawing from Calhoun's popular research, social scientists started to call for restrictions on reproduction as the only possible response to the world's rising population. Calhoun himself was more optimistic about our future. He argued, as our physical space declines, we are forced to extend a conceptual space, our network of ideas and technologies. Later in his career, he turned to possible solutions and began to build creative universes that minimize the ill effects of overcrowding. What are your thoughts? Is overcrowding a danger for mankind, or does it only affect rodents? And if so, what can save the human psyche? Avoiding eye contact in crowded places is one strategy, but is that enough? To read more about Universe 25.
Well, I guess we could probably stop it there, but I want to get your initial thoughts on this one before we go too heavy into the psychology aspect of this one. Like, since you haven't heard about this before.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my first thought was this seems like kind of how we as a world, society, whatever you want to call it, are going now. I mean, everybody talks about how, Gen Z's not having sex and like all that kind of shit. And there's just a lot of studies that prove or point to the fact that we just have too many people. And, this is maybe taking it a step too far, but when they were talking about like there's not enough meaningful roles for the number of people, that could be even taken to a level like there's just so many more like college graduates now than there were in years past. And there's not enough high paying jobs for all those college graduates. And, in college, you get fed this line of bullshit about how rich and successful you're going to be from going to college. And that's not how it plays out. So, I mean, it just seems like this is kind of the path that we're on, and it's very easy for me to see the parallels. And I'll quit rambling on and let you add some of your thoughts since you're more familiar with it than I am.
See, this is continuing off of basically what you were kind of saying. This kind of gets into like the whole idea of like the new Genesis movement with the whole like dwindling down the numbers, or even like the elite things getting into like the Florida Guidestones and stuff that we were talking about a while ago. And also, it seems like it kind of touches bases on almost like the smart city concept, that it talks about basically trying to create these like utopian societies. But, we can't have this many people in a utopian society because, like it was also mentioning in the video, like you don't get those meaningful connections. When you don't get these meaningful connections, it leads to this like feeling of just absolute loneliness. So almost by like, I'm not trying to say that smart cities are a good thing, but viewing it from like that standpoint, saying like smart cities, keeping people in the smaller group of people would maybe help with like the socializing of people within that. Like, but the fucked up part about it is by no means do I think people should be restricted. People shouldn't be restricted in the amount of, kids that they should be allowed to have by any means. But on the flip side of it, looking at it from like this psychology standpoint, like it does make sense. But on the other side of it, you're also basically relating people to working like a herd like animals. But I mean, at the end of the day, I guess we are realistically animals. And it seems like when you dive into a lot of this psychology stuff, it definitely mirrors a lot of animal behavior, like even the hierarchy with like humans, as far as like the wolf hierarchy goes, like that's pretty weirdly comparably close. So, I mean, maybe this utopian society for rats abundantly will end up being inevitably the same thing that would happen with almost any species that were put in this situation.
Well, and taking it a step further to like more kind of current issues, this idea that you would think like unlimited choice and unlimited options are like always a good thing, but like there's some point where too many choices and too many options actually becomes restricting and overwhelming. And it's like the whole like Netflix thing where you spend more time scrolling trying to find something to watch than you actually spend watching stuff. And they talk about how people are going back to iPods now because that was like the exact perfect amount of control to have over your music, and now there's like just too much everything. So yeah, I think this is like a really good, I don't know, example, I guess would be the correct word for a lot of like societal issues that are going on now. And I think you could kind of extrapolate this out onto a whole lot of other areas, and I think it all fits. I mean, it certainly does seem like as a society, as a world, we're getting to some sort of critical mass at this point. But yeah, I mean, it seems like we're very close to the rats just stopping fucking and eating themselves point, if you ask me.
I mean, even kind of comparing it to other things, they're talking about these females, the female rats staying up at the high points and really having no interest in males other than being looked at. I mean, that almost kind of seems like, not trying to judge anybody for making their buck, like whatever, man, but like the OnlyFans type of females that they want to sit up on this high perch and be looked at, but they don't actually want to be interacted with and touched. But on the flip side of that, they talk about these like rats or the males that'll just overly groom themselves and basically have no interest in the females and just chill amongst themselves. That seems like the whole like incel concept that's going on now. Just rather than them wanting to sit here and prim and pamper themselves, they do it in a different way where they start getting into specific ideology and they just start kind of going down that trail. So it's like almost like you get involved in yourself, and it's just depending on the human, you kind of get involved in yourself in different ways. It's like a means of being able to keep busy because the females think that they're above everybody else, at least in this hierarchy. But I mean, even on the flip side of that other hierarchy, I mean, if there's that many males and it's that rampant, like you were saying, too much of a choice, you get to a point where you're like, all right, I don't want to have to make a choice, so I'm just not going to make a choice.
Yeah.
And
becomes
it's
crippling.
not enough like males versus females ratio or anything like that. It's just a matter of like the guys, there's too many guys around for the girls. The girls are like, I don't want to make an option, so I'm just not going to make an option at all. And then on the flip side, the guys are like, all right, the girls aren't interested in us, so I'm just going to go do my own thing. I don't really give a shit. Like, this is exactly mirroring society where we're at currently,
Well, and something kind of random, but going back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier that popped into my head while you were just talking about that. Going back to when I was in college. So I went to like a very like math and science and engineering school. So it was like overwhelmingly male, like 65-70% male. So like any remotely attractive girl, there was always like 6 dudes following behind her. So it's kind of like this same idea. Like at some point the numbers game just doesn't number anymore. And so I can see why the rats just gave up,
I mean, even on another hierarchy type of aspect too. I mean, it's something that I see at work where it's like people don't have anything to like fixate on. So then they'll start fixating on like one particular woman, and they end up creating this completely irrational idea of like who she might actually be in her head. And I think it happens on the other side too, where girls will do the same thing. They'll have this whole idea of like what they want for the ideal partner, and they'll just create this whole just fantasy within their head that's completely unrealistic. And then in turn, it's like both of these sides end up doing this thing where they're trying to find that, inevitably not knowing that they're never going to find that perfect person. It's a matter of finding somebody that you're going to work with
rather than a person.
Yeah, so because it's like in the past when there's a little bit less numbers of people, it's like you find somebody close that you really enjoy, and then you're willing to like work with each other to figure out your differences, whatever.
Well,
but
and
nowadays,
social media and stuff like
so
that
abundant.
probably has exacerbated that as well.
Yeah, because it's like it's so abundant now that it's like, all right, I don't like the way this guy blinks. Next person. All right, I don't like the way that this girl, clears your throat. Next one. Like it's just become such a throwaway culture, not even just in the material aspect of things, but also just with the sense of communication between people. Because whether it's friends, whether it's a significant other, like whatever, we live in a culture nowadays where it's like there's such an abundance of people that you have one little tiny altercation with this person, and they may have been a lifetime friend, but nowadays it's like there's so many people, it's like, all right, this person rubbed me wrong with this one day, so I'm never going to talk to him again, and that's the end of it. And you don't have to, like, there's you lose the sense of communication when you don't have to work through the problems with people. It's kind of like creating this utopian society. Like if there's no turmoil, then there's no room for growth. If everything is always perfect all the time, then there's no opportunity for growth. And it's the same thing you see in this. It's like people inevitably will go stir crazy if there isn't a challenge, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, and that even goes to like having too much vacation time. Like, so, you know, I talked a little bit in the past about how the company I work for, got bought out. And so like they've revamped the whole like vacation time structure. And before we could like trade in vacation time and it would roll over, and now that doesn't happen. So like I'm trying to take like all the vacation time I can. And so over Easter weekend, I took an extra day and like had a 4-day weekend. And by that 4th day, man, I was kind of ready to get back to work, you know? So I think people just need, and this is something that me and Jenny talk about a lot. People need hobbies. People need things to occupy their time and occupy their brain power. And it's human nature to kind of fixate on things. And I think when people don't have hobbies or something like that, like, you know, if you're,
They need to feel like they're doing something. That's what
if
it
you're like
is.
a single mother, or not a single mother, you know, mother living in a McMansion and your husband's at work all day and you don't like have a hobby or something to occupy your time, like you're going to fixate about something. And, you know, it could be the neighbor next door has a bigger pool than we do. Like it goes back to this too many options thing. Like it's just human nature to, you know, kind of desire something, I think. And if there's nothing to really fill that void, people are going to still find something, you know?
Well, I mean, even kind of going into the whole aspect of what you were saying, like when it comes to like communication, it's like we're having way too much communication in a sense than we're supposed to the point where it's like we block it out. It's like, you know, we have the internet, so we have this means of communicating with literally anybody at any point in the world. But because that is so abundant, it's like you almost just want to back off from it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to like particular items and stuff. It's like you don't want that many choices because then you get into a spot where it's like, all right, I don't even know which one to pick, so I'm not even going to pick one anymore. So it's like if you didn't have that many options, then it wouldn't be this materialistic back and forth thing where you got to compete with the next person next to you. And I'm not saying that, you know, options aren't necessarily like a bad thing. It's just that we've gotten to a point now where it's like we have so many options as a human that we were never intended to have this many options in life.
Yeah.
So now it's like we don't know how to mentally deal with it because we haven't processed it.
It almost
It's the
becomes
same as the
meaningless.
internet.
You know, it's like if you look at something as simple as like music, like back in the 70s, there was just way less of it. You know, so you ended up, you were either like a rock and roll guy or you were a disco girl or whatever. And like music, and I guess movies to a lesser degree, but like music really fucking mattered in the 70s. Like now there's just too much of it. Anybody with a MacBook and a dream can write an album. Like it's almost, music has almost been rendered like just elevator background music in our lives. And it's not this like important thing to most people like it was in decades past.
I mean, this is a conversation I have all the time at work about this stuff too. Even like within music, it's like you get that sense of community. And also when there's less music, you got like the rockers, you got the disco people, you got this.
Yeah.
Like it creates a sense of community even within those musics.
Yeah,
where
everything's
even
just
if it's
fractured
like
now.
you ain't got nothing in common within it, it's like you can still get along over that.
Mhm.
Now it's always a thing with the speaker that I'm always bitching about the speaker at work, that I've made this point that there's such a variety in music nowadays that there is no single type of music you can play that everybody in the room is going to be happy with. People are so far off the spectrum with things that you could play classic rock and there's going to be somebody in here that drives them crazy to the point where they're going to end up flipping out on
And
somebody.
that like used to be like the most generic thing you could put on, you know?
Yeah, now it's like even within that, it's like we also don't get that sense of community just because there's such a vast range of music. And so it's like even within electronic music or within rock music, like you go up to a group of somebody and you're into rock and you're like, hey, I like this particular rock. And they're like, no, fuck you. That rock sucks. This rock's a better version of rock.
Yeah.
So it's like even within the rock communities, people are fighting with each other about it. Like it's just with more options, it's creating this more and more sense of division. But it's kind of weird because on the flip side, it's like you meet somebody that has those same interests and it almost feels like the connection is stronger, but it's harder to find that connection because if you do, they're on the other side of the fucking planet and it's not even like somebody you can honestly face-to-face socialize with anyways. Like you lose sense of your actual local community and you think that the community is this whole world when it was never intended to be. It was intended to be localized.
Yeah, and I think kind of this is, I guess, going to be my like in a nutshell synopsis of all this. It seems like, you know, the bigger the world gets, the smaller it gets in some like paradoxical way, you know, like we've got more options than ever, but are like more kind of pigeonholed to those options. So I don't know. I think that was a really interesting video. Again, not something I was super familiar with, but yeah, it seems like the society and the world we're living in right now. And yeah, we're right around the corner from eating each other, it seems like.
Ain't that the truth? See, I think it's one of those things that every few episodes I'm going to try to bring these up, but I'm really fascinated with these social experiments and how they actually like completely mirror like society.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if, you know, you don't believe that it's necessarily true, like it's still, whoa, why is there two of me? You see that?
You popped out for a second. You're back now.
Whoa, what the hell is happening? How do I close one? I don't know how to do it. Hold on, everybody. Let me figure out how to close it. I'm hearing two of myself. Whoa, what the hell? All right. I think we are live again. Hopefully we are live again. Let's see. Just to double check on the feed. All right. Yes, we are live again. All right. Sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulties. I don't know what the fuck just happened. We had like 10 of Orin pop up on the screen and then like 10 of me pop up on the screen. And then I was hearing like 6 versions of myself talking. And yeah, I don't understand what the fuck just happened.
One of each of us is all we need. We definitely don't need us in stereo.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't need 2 of me. I think 1 is more than enough. But anywho, getting into the next topic, I do have some transition music for this. And we are diving into Orin's topic. And I don't know exactly where you want to start with this one, how you want to address it to the listeners, but I am bringing it up here so that we can get into it, sir.
All right, so kind of how I've been doing the past few months on these, I'm doing kind of a more current events type situation. We're going to talk about the Pope a little bit.
I am delivered!
Okay. This isn't going to get too, political or religious or anything like that, so fear not out there. But anyway, I've got the article pulled up on my screen so I can actually read it proper. So I'm just going to pull it up, Shane, and you can just kind of tag along, I guess. Sound good?
Yep, I got it up, sir.
All right. So this is a article from thedailymail.com. This is kind of a source I think we've talked about a couple times here recently. But anyway, it says, 1,000-year-old prophecy predicts next pope after Francis dies and issues a chilling warning for humanity. All right, Shane.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Damn it, sorry, those rats are still hanging around, man.
All right. So Pope Francis's sudden death has thrown the spotlight back on a 900-year-old prophetic manuscript. A 12th century prophecy of the popes, reportedly uncovered in the Vatican's secret archives, claims to predict the identity of Francis's successor and even foretells the return of Christ. The document contains a series of cryptic Latin phrases, each believed to describe a pope, starting with Celestine II in 1143 and ending with, quote, Peter the Roman in 2027. Fanning the flames is the eerie fact that there are currently 9, interesting number there, frontrunners to succeed Pope Francis, and 3, another interesting number, are named Peter. The renewed interest...
There's a lot of Peters. Too many Peters.
I mean, speak for yourself. The renewed interest has also reignited fears about one of the prophecy's more chilling predictions, that Judgment Day is near. Many Christians believe the year 2027 could mark the second coming of Christ, when Jesus is said to return to earth and judge the living and the dead. According to the prophecy, that fateful day is now less than 2 years away. Francis, who had been battling respiratory issues for months, died Monday at age 88 of a suspected cerebral hemorrhage, a type of stroke caused by bleeding in the brain. After a traditional 9-day mourning period, the Catholic Church will begin the process of choosing his successor, calling all cardinals from around the globe to Rome for the next conclave. And what's kind of interesting about this, I believe it was like the end of last year, a movie called Conclave came out that was about this very thing. Have you seen that movie, Shane?
I have not.
So it's pretty good. It's definitely worth a watch, like even not in light of current events, but that's kind of one of those weird, maybe synchronicities, maybe not.
Just a completely off-topic side tangent, but Did you read any of those articles this past week about the Pope where they were like, all right, the Pope is dead? And then like the next day they were like, all right, that was all false. The Pope is still alive. And then all of a sudden the next day it's like, all right, we're picking the Pope. The Pope's dead. Like, did you ever figure out what the hell was happening with that? Was that just one news source that just threw that out there? Or like, what was the reasoning between this like one day of them being
See,
like,
I don't
all right,
know
he's
about
not dead?
that, but some of the stuff that I kind of did look into speculated that the Pope has actually been dead for a while now, and they basically just now announced it, mostly due to kind of numerology and dates and things like that. He supposedly died on the Monday after Easter. And there's like, again, not to get too political, but there's a lot of things with this Pope being like the first Jesuit, and just you can go a lot of different ways with like the numerology and the significance of a lot of dates and times and things like that. And I'm gonna leave that kind of vague, but you guys can look into that if you want to.
Was his last public appearance the opening of the doors thing?
I don't know if that was his last public appearance, but yeah, we did talk about the opening of the doors, the portal thing, on a couple episodes ago, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it was like 1 or 2 episodes back. But I mean, kind of makes you curious though, if he did die sooner, if that may have been some type of like fill-in Pope for that, or on the flip side of it, if he didn't already die sooner, again, if that may have been one of his last public appearances. But I mean, it doesn't seem like it's totally out of question to one, have somebody kind of fill in the spot,
Yeah.
especially if you have this specific thing that you're trying to do. Like it may. That's part of where the conspiracy comes in with like the Queen of England on whether or not she died exactly when they claim that they did. And it wasn't a matter of like some grand conspiracy to like cover something up. It's rather, I think, the more of like they're trying to set stuff up so that everything will roll into place as it's supposed to. Because right after the Queen announces dead, they have to start all this stuff where they start looking for who's going to be the next in line, blah, 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 blah. Same with the Pope stuff. I mean, it may have been a matter of if he died a couple months ago, it may not be some giant grand old conspiracy, but rather like, all right, we need to pretend like this guy's alive for another month or two just so we can get everything pre-set up, and then we can kind of roll it in instead of it being just like thrown in your lap. You kind of get that. I guess you can also kind of call it like a mourning period, because if the public doesn't know about it, people aren't bombarding you with it yet, so you can kind of like grieve in your own time for a little bit before the public gets involved.
Well, and with something like the Queen dying or the Pope dying, there's a lot of moving parts that need to be put into place after that happens. So, I mean, again, you could even like not some big Illuminati conspiracy, but like there are actual like real world kind of more down to earth reasons why that might be the case. But with a lot of these institutions, it's kind of hard to give them the benefit of the doubt with anything.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like the Vatican, for example, because it's like, regardless of like religion, it seems like even people that are Catholics kind of have this understanding that the Vatican is definitely corrupt, because again, regardless of your standing, of your viewpoint on any of this type of stuff, like you have to admit that there's going to be corruption within a governmental system. So if you have a religious governmental system, of course, there's going to be some form of corruption within it at some point.
Yeah, that's just human nature. But
exactly.
Anyway, you want to jump back into this a little bit?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the selection process known as the papal conclave must start between 15 and 20 days after Francis's death. Only cardinals under the age of 80 are eligible to vote, and a 2/3 majority is required to elect a new pope. Saint Malachi is credited with the prophecy of the popes, which features 112 short cryptic phrases that allegedly describe each future pope until Judgment Day. According to the final entry surrounding Peter the Roman, the, quote, last pope, will preside over the church during a time of great turmoil, culminating in the destruction of Rome and the end of the papacy. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, that's a lot of R's in one sentence, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. The end. The last passage of the book reads. So it's kind of interesting about this is the seven-hilled city. Most people would assume that's Rome, correct? Well, we kind of get into kind of more conspiratorial American ideas. So, there's this, I'll just call it a theory out there that, the American government, when it was set up back in the 1700s, was very, let's just say, inspired by Rome and like the idea of the Roman Empire. And the original name for Washington, D.C. was New Rome. And the reason that that particular site was chosen is it is also surrounded by 7 hills. So, I mean, you could go 2 different ways with this particular prophecy. Could it be talking about Rome and the Vatican falling, or could it be talking about Washington, D.C. falling? And amid all the, political turmoil going on right now, I think that's kind of interesting to think about.
Dude, if that is the case too, bringing in a whole different context to all of this like Saturn worship completely makes sense, because I mean that's where it all originated from. Like Saturn aura, like all of the Saturn worship like originated from like Rome. So that just brings in like a whole other creepy validity to this whole entire idea about what's actually happening behind the scenes, and like what the symbology of things actually is. And not to get off on another side tangent, I mean, this is partially related, not partially related, I guess, but I've been really, really fascinated lately at this whole concept about how the Statue of Liberty actually looks like Lucifer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And again, if you bring all this stuff into context, it almost makes more sense. But like down to the chain on the specific ankle, like the face, the way that it's holding up the arm, like everything, dude. Like,
yeah, there's some painting that is of Lucifer that is basically like a spitting image of the Statue of Liberty, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I mean, you guys should be able to pretty easily Google that out there.
Dude, it brings in like a whole other just creepy feeling when you hear about this whole idea that we came to the New World for like religious freedom. And maybe it's non-specific, almost like in the Freemason sense that, they're like, all right, we came here to have religious freedom, but they didn't necessarily like clarify the exact specific context, like it's kind of like, you're only going to obey one God for the Freemasons, but they don't specify which God in particular.
Well,
it's kind of like,
they specifically say, it can be whichever one you want. You just have to believe in a higher power. It can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be, the big G God of the Bible.
I mean, one nation under God, when they originally wrote that, did they mean that with a little g, or was it a big G, like?
Well, and, the funny thing about it is I've heard a lot of people on a lot of different things say, the Roman Empire didn't fall. It didn't go away. It became the Catholic Church. And, the Catholic Church is a big driver in, a lot of the stuff, the apparatus we have in America. Like all this stuff comes from Rome, basically, so, I mean, it's all, 2 sides of the same coin.
Dude, and just to bring in just another weird thing to think about, I'm kind of curious where the future of this is going to go, because so you have a lot of this like this rise in like religious views as far as like Christian and Catholic in the United States, but part of that on the flip side is the fact that there's all the stuff that's involved with Trump. So it's like one specific viewpoint on these religions, but on the other flip side, you also had this Pope that just passed away, which a lot of people knew him as like the woke Pope, because he was kind of bringing in a lot of this woke ideology into the church. So depending on like who the next pick is for the Pope, I can foresee some type of possible turmoil where if it's a woke Pope again, I feel like there is going to be some type of huge backlash, at least from, the right side of the United States. But if there's a not woke Pope, I definitely think that it might also, on another flip side, be ushering in this like new era of basically you bring people to this point of like absolute depravity, and then from there it makes people beg to want to be kind of brought back into normalcy as they view it. And it's almost like this, I think I mentioned on the show recently, this whole like reoccurring concept of when you start diving into like the Weimar Republic, that you had this complete just like everybody's out here doing whatever they want, just crazy weird adultery, whatever. And then because of that happening, now you have this point where everybody wants to basically suck everything back in, like we don't want that anymore, and that's the end of that. So I definitely feel like we're at this weird teetering point with almost like this, I'm not trying to say World War III is going to start up or anything like that, but at least ideology, or talking about like ideology aspects of this, like I definitely think that we're on this point where it's almost like a replay of like where the Weimar Republic was.
So funny enough, and this is going to be a spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, excuse me, but kind of the plot of that movie Conclave is they had a very, progressive pope who died. And then there's this like hard right, staunch, right wing conservative pope that's kind of jockeying for position. And basically the cardinals kind of band together and be like, we cannot let this guy be the pope. He's going to, divide people further. So it's pretty funny that basically without have seen that movie and knowing what it was about, you kind of laid out the plot of it. So it could be a little predictive programming here. Who knows?
That's what I was just about to say, man. We dive into this occult stuff all the time on the show. And as soon as we start diving into it, we notice this pattern recognition that will, again, go over to some movie or something like that. And this is usually what we say, is that they'll try to hide this stuff within fictional movies. So when people hear this stuff, they go, oh, that's just, this fictional movie that was happening. So it's almost like they're throwing exactly what's happening right in front of you, but you don't believe it because you're like, oh, that's just a fictional movie. I mean, same thing with sightings, man. Yeah, same with sightings. Like, nobody believes that there's a possibility of there being this glimmer man until you see one, and then you're like, holy shit, that looked like a predator. And now everybody you go and tell and say, hey, I saw this thing, it looked like Predator in the woods. They're like, yeah, you're fucking crazy. What do you mean? Like, that was in that movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, now you sit here and you're trying to guess what's going to happen with the Pope, and it's like most people are going to be like, oh, that's the plot to this movie. Like, what are you talking about? That's fiction. That couldn't happen.
That just came out a few months ago, which is pretty funny. But all right, so kind of jumping back in, let's see. While some incorrectly interpreted the prophecy as Peter the Roman taking over for Pope Francis during his recent hospitalizations, others believe Malachi was suggesting Francis himself would be the last pontiff. Over the years, biblical scholars have focused on the timeline surrounding these future popes and when they would lead the Catholic Church. Some believe the text proclaimed that it had reached its halfway point in 1585 after the first 442 years of predictions. This would make the final year of Malachi's prophecy 2027. Although some scholars have claimed the text is a 16th century forgery, Malachi allegedly wrote Prophecy of the Popes in 1139 after receiving a vision during a visit to Rome. The claims that someone else wrote the 112 phrases about each future pope stem from the specific and highly accurate way each of the popes are described up until 1590. At that point, the phrasing becomes much more vague and leaves a lot open to interpretation. However, there are still some shockingly accurate phrases that can be found in modern times. One of the prophecies names the 111th Pope as being the glory of the olive once translated into English. Some historians believe this shows Malachi accurately predicted Pope Benedict would lead the Catholic Church since, let's see, this is, oh, it's a typo in the sentence, would lead the Catholic Church since coming, I guess is what it's supposed to be, from a religious order known as the Olivetans. He was pope from 2005 to 2013. Another line of text reads, of the eclipse of the sun. And I think this is kind of interesting in light of some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, which has been speculated to signal the coming of Pope John Paul II, who was born during a solar eclipse. He was pope from 1978 until 2005. Among the many frontrunners to replace Francis are three cardinals who each have the name Peter, including Peter Erdo of Hungary, the leading conservative candidate. There you go. Peter Turkson of Ghana, a prominent figure in the church's social justice circles. So there you go. Kind of more progressive pope. And Pietro Parolin of Italy, one of the most experienced Vatican officials. Before his death, some tried to connect Francis to the prophecy of Peter the Roman, noting his Italian heritage and the fact that his birth name was Giovanni di Pietro de Bernardone. The saint's predictions were taken seriously in the last few decades, as one report states, quote, in 1958, before the conclave that would elect Pope John the 23rd, Cardinal Spellman of New York hired a boat, filled it with sheep, and sailed up and down the Tiber River to show that he was, quote, pastor et nuerter, the motto attributed to the next pope in the Prophecies. We've only got a little bit more of this. While the book was found more than 400 years ago, its prophecy recently resurfaced when Francis suffered 2 episodes of respiratory crisis in February. As for Judgment Day, speculation regarding its impending arrival has intensified over the last year as Francis's health faded. A documentary, a documentary released in 2024 focused on a passage attributed to Pope Sextus V from. So that's kind of interesting. Pope Sextus V. If the next pope chooses to be Pope Sextus, that would be Pope Sextus the Sixth, 666. But anyway, from 1585, that reads, Axel, in the midst of a sign supposedly marking the halfway point of Malachi's prophecy, Pope Sextus V led the church 442 years after the first leader mentioned by Malachi, and with the text suggesting he is in the middle of the prophecy, the end of the world would therefore come 442 years later in 2027, just 20 months after Francis's death. Okay.
On another side note, I don't know if you've seen this, but did you know that you're not supposed to take pictures with the dead pope?
No, I did not.
This has become a problem to the point where they have put out a public warning requesting that people do not take selfies with the pope, the dead pope, to be a little bit more specific. And I just had to throw one in here for the sake of it, for all the listeners. They wanted to see this. Yes. And there have been people that were caught with selfie sticks.
My dead pope selfie later.
Yeah, you might want to do that. Otherwise, you might get in trouble. Actually, I don't know if these people actually got in trouble, but they definitely didn't want them to be publicized. So hence, the pixelation on the face. But there's definitely a plethora of these pictures of people trying to take pictures with the dead pope.
Not to make light of anything, but they're pretty funny looking. Just like somebody peace signing and duck lipsing in front of the dead pope. I mean,
dude, the scariest part would be, what if he got up in the back and gave a peace sign back?
Or just like sat up like the fucking Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Speaking about WrestleMania and fun sporting events. So, Orin, I know that you are a betting man. You are, dare they say, a gambling man. Well, I think I may have found something new that you can bet on.
Oh, Lord. Are you ready
for the next big sporting event that I'm going to have to try to pull you away from every time we do an event, man?
All right,
man.
Lay it on.
You ready for this? This is going to be bigger than the Florida Man. You ready for this?
No way.
The world's first sperm race.
Okay.
And for anybody that doesn't have any context of this, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of the background of it. So, the whole intention on why they are supposedly doing these sperm races is supposed to be for the sake of trying to make people aware of basically men's dropping fertility. So, I guess to kind of get into a little bit, sperm racing, when people hear it, they ask me the same thing every time. Wait, is this actually happening? And the answer is always, hell yes it is. But here's the thing. Sperm racing isn't just a joke. It's not just some virtual idea for the internet to laugh at, such as us today. It's something much bigger. Male fertility is declining. Like a lot, it's happening quietly, steadily, and nobody's really talking about it. So, in order to make people talk about this, these guys have put together this event where they basically have created this, synthetic womb where basically they can take two men's ejaculation and try to see which one will be the better sperm, which one will make it out on top, and which one will fertilize the egg.
I don't care. You come in my face, I'm going to fight you.
And I actually brought up the actual video of this sperm race, if you'd like to see it, to see how exciting it really is to watch men's.
So is this like Bizarre Encounters After Dark?
A little bit like Bizarre Encounters After Dark. I mean,
okay.
I'm about to bust.
All right, let's see it.
All right, let's see this race.
I know how this movie ends.
That's a louder than.
Oh, it's an intercollegiate competition. I did not realize that.
This is some official shit, bro.
Well, USC's mascot's the Trojans, so they're obviously going to win.
There you go.
Think it's coming up?
Oh, literally.
He's coming out. Look out.
I don't care. You come in my face, I'm going to fight you.
What the hell is even that?
Here is the fake vagina for the sperm racing. Look at that sperm go, bro.
All right, so I have to stop you right here. Like, do
See those hard corners it's
do you
taking, man?
actually like? How does the manly contribution get into the apparatus?
I would assume that you're not doing it on stage. Otherwise, that would bring in a whole other set of problems. My assumption is that
Well, they
it probably
didn't show
has to
that
be.
part in the video.
It probably has to be relatively fresh. I'm going to assume that it's not, some stuff that they put off into a sperm bank that's been frozen for a little bit. Because of course, you want that sperm to be ready to go right out the fucking gate.
Just
That shit's
cooked
got to
up
be
a
hot.
fresh batch.
It's got to be fresh. As you can see from the start of this video, these guys are wearing jumpsuits. So what my assumption is they knocked one out in the back real quick, brought it out, threw it in the tank, and they were ready to go, bro.
Well, we haven't seen them from the waist down, so we don't know if they have pants on.
That's the scary part. Do they have pants on? I mean, they got jumpsuits, so.
All right.
Oh my God, which sperm is going to win? Are you taking left or right? You taking left or right, bro?
Whichever one USC is, that's what I'm taking. I'm going for the
Oh, that
Trojan.
sperm got stuck in the fallopian tube. You see that? It hasn't moved, man.
Swimmers have stopped swimming.
Those little swimmers have stopped swimming. Dude, I love how hyped this guy's getting about his sperm, bro. You see this guy over here? And they got a fucking lab coat guy? That's the referee?
This is like more of a rave than like a sporting event.
For future generations.
Dude, you know damn well that guy's wearing a doctor's coat, but he ain't got no qualification.
Oh, look how hyped up all the spectators are.
The scary part, though, to me at least, is how many
fucking people are there.
And it's all guys. Guys just want to watch other dudes sperm race.
If he wins this one, it's over.
I mean, if
he wins this one, it's over.
yeah.
They're doing multiple rounds of this, man. That's already a whole other sense of male fertility that I cannot keep up with myself, man. I cannot go 2 rounds back to back, man.
Well, you just don't have what it takes to win the world's first sperm race.
They're not exactly neck and neck here.
I'm about to bust.
Did we even get a sample?
So, Shane, I do have a very important question. What on earth were you Googling that you found this?
Actually, I've been following a weird news page in order to try to find these comical articles for at the end of the show. And this is what popped up. And ironically, a couple days after, I actually heard 2 other podcasts talking about this. Shout out to Our Big Dumb Mouth. They were actually talking about this. But they were talking about it before the event happened. And then the other show was Theories of the Third Kind. They were talking about it on their Strange News. So we are not the first people to cover this, unfortunately, just because of when Bizarre Inquiries had to fall. But, hopefully,
Well, you can't
maybe
always
we'll
be
last.
first, just like in sperm racing.
But maybe you'll finish last, I guess. That's the hope.
Well,
Maybe not
I mean,
the hope.
just like
Not if you're
a
racing.
nice moderate finish. Not too fast, not too slow. Just, you hadn't had too many cold beers. You're just good to go. You're just in the groove.
Daddy, chill.
Okay.
What the hell is even that?
So, I don't know how much farther I can go with this, man. We got people ejaculating into little cups. We got people screaming, betting, shouting, getting very, very excited about watching the semen do its thing.
So, do you know what this reminds me of? In Jackass, like the actual TV show, not the movies, they did like a sperm Olympics one time where they went to like the sperm donation place, and then like they're all wearing like athletic wear and headbands and stuff, and then they like saw who had the highest sperm count and who completed the task the fastest and things like that. So that's like just the dumbed down version of this. This is like the technological sperm Olympics from Johnny Knoxville.
See, my question is, would those guys be able to compete? Like, do you have to be specific? Do you have to be a top champion, or do you just have to be a top comer?
Yeah, like,
because
what's
I
the
feel
vetting
like
process for this? Is it like the hot dog eating contest and you have to like win a regional before you go to nationals?
How many times can you jack off in this cup? How high is your sperm count? But one thing that I've noticed is that these people that are on the more jack side, they tend to take another substance which will also drop that count. So the physical physique can't necessarily be how they specify who would qualify for this. It would have to be, at the end of the day, who's going to win the circle jerk? Who's going to be the one who will finish last? And who is going to be the one who will come the strongest?
It's finally an athletic event I could excel at. I
gonna
might
sign
not
you
be
up.
tall or fast or strong, but I might be good at this. We don't know.
We'll have to test it out, man. We're gonna start a team. We're gonna show up. We're gonna start an all-around team, man. We're gonna be going to the Florida game competition. We're gonna be going to the Sperm Olympics, and we need a clever team name that can accompany all of this ridiculousness that we want to get involved in.
Just like get an RV and go on the road.
Yeah, sperm racing to running away from the cops while stealing Cadillac converter racing to what other crazy stuff do you think they have? I'm sure that they probably have some some cryptid calling at some point. We could probably do a cryptid calling competition. We just got to do the world tour of the most bizarre competitions, and it would fit because it would fit our show, right?
Well,
Most bizarre competitions.
The sperm race, definitely a bizarre encounter.
I don't care. You come in my face, I'm gonna fight you.
Okay. And on that note, so our next live show is going to be on June 5th. That's a Thursday. It's going to be 7:15-ish Eastern time.
Ish?
Yeah. On the Open Minds Media YouTube channel. So you guys be sure to join us for that. Submit questions, articles, videos, anything like that. And be sure to join us in the chat as well.
And if you guys want to get a hold of us for any reason whatsoever, you guys can contact us through email, which is bizarreencounters@outlook.com. Or if you're listening on the Inquiries feed, it is inquiriesofourealitypodcast@outlook.com. Or even easier, you guys can get a hold of us through social media. Doesn't matter which page, what show, just make sure that you guys get a hold of us, follow those pages, and of course, you will get updates for new and exciting things going on with the show.
And if you guys do not already, please be sure you follow Open Minds Media and all the various shows on all the various social medias. Instagram is where we're most active, but we've also got the TikTok and the YouTube and all that good stuff. So like, share, and subscribe, and do all the internet things.
And if you guys want to support us in a different way, our Patreon is still currently under construction, but it will have some new and interesting things coming very soon. But on the other flip side, you guys can always go and check out the Open Minds Media merch store. And I recently dropped 2 brand new designs over there, one of which is this really cool one where you got a Sasquatch hanging out around a campfire with an alien. One of them smoking a joint, one of them's having a beer. They're having a chill time with the allotments, the cannabis, all of it. And it will be a fun time, especially if you guys buy that shirt. And then on the flip side, for the little bit more conspiratorial-minded individuals out there, I recently dropped a new design that says "Break the Mind Control," that has the marionette hands with this really cool, mesmerizing swirl behind it. But I think you guys will definitely like those designs, so don't forget to go and check them out and see what awesome stuff we have to offer over there on the Open Minds Media merch store.
And as always, all this shit is in the link tree in the show description.
And as always, I let my mind wander. I hope that all of you guys let your minds wander. And we will end up catching you guys on that next live show. And if anybody has anything that they would like to submit before then, of course, make sure that you guys get it into us before then. And with that, I bid you guys a farewell and adieu.
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 All right, I got to go practice for the Sperm Olympics.
Daddy, chill.
Chill, Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
I'm here to date your 6-year-old. My superpower's being honest. I will eat my neighbors.
What the hell is even that?
I am delivered.
I love the "I am delivered" guy. He's my favorite.